welcome to my show, Soul Tea with Marie. So I was going to have a guest this evening and she was not able to make it. It's Michelle. She was on last week and she talked about twin flames. I just found out that she wasn't going to make it. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. And I kind of knew that's where we were going today. I kept hearing a certain name pop up and that I was going to do some channeling. And maybe tell a little bit about my story as well, how I got into being a medium and how I got to be here and then the channeling. So first I want to say that I will be channeling, today's July 20th, and this is the birthday of Chris Cornell. It is also the day that Chester Bennington took his life, or his life was taken, depending on what it is that you believe or what you feel. So I will be channeling both of them. They are definitely here. Chris told me all day that I was going to channel him. And I said, oh, I guess I'm going to do it for YouTube because I do channeling on YouTube. And he just happened to be the one and only person. Well, he and Chester, believe it or not, were the only two people that I channeled before on YouTube, but I have channeled others. Lane Stanley comes with Chris. Chris kind of comes with a plethora of people. When he came to me with grunge and all of those boys. So we'll see who pops through. And I'm already getting the scratchy throat, which is in reference to Chris, because when he, okay, so they're just ready to talk. They're just ready to talk. Chris is just ready to talk already. And so this is a 30-minute show. I'm going to close my eyes and this may just go right into the time and I may not see it. So I apologize for anybody that's watching. But when they start sending me information, I just kind of roll with it. And I do want to say quickly that Kurt Cobain is also here to say hello and to watch the festivities of his brother. What he calls Chris is his brother. And Chester, he says little brother, but not quite. But he does honor Chris as his brother. And he says brother in arms. Okay, so, okay. So Kurt's going to stick around just for a little bit more. Okay, so Kurt is here also to honor Chris for what he brought to music. He's saying that he laid out the land for everyone. He started it all. He paved the path. And Kurt is saying he is grateful for that. Kurt is also very playful, and he's like, oh, yeah, I had talent. He's like, I would have made it anyway, but he's saying Chris really he's using an 80s comment, which is took the bull by the horns. Do you remember that when we used to say that in the 80s? He took the bull by the horns and he plowed through. And by the time Kurt was on the scene, Chris had already been around for quite a while. I don't know a lot about grunge. When I first became a medium, or when I realized I became a medium, one of the first people that came to me, this is years ago, was Kurt. But I never discussed with him his music or grunge. And it wasn't until years later, until Chris Cornell came to me a few years ago, and he stayed for about a weekend. And then he left, and he came back again a couple months ago. And he's been here full force. So I know a little bit about music, but I don't know a lot. Anyway, Kurt is saying, quiet, I'm here. Kurt is very abrupt and direct, where, and Chris is saying Chris is saying I could be direct, but I was a little more playful, sarcastic when I was direct. I added a little charisma to it, a little sex appeal, which I know Chris is saying I wasn't really known for that. I shied away from that. But I also used it, and I knew how to use it. I used it with restraint because I was always married. Um, and he is saying, so we're going to move back into Chris. And he is saying that I loved both of my wives, contrary to everything that has gone on, but I loved them both. Susan was my first love, and she helped pave the way for what I became. And I have regrets on how I became later in life with her. We had an explosive falling out that the world saw. I don't mean the world as in the whole world, I mean Seattle. Seattle saw our fights in plain view. It was, he's saying it was written in the stars what happened to us. And I think he is, okay, sorry, not think. He's showing me, he means that in two ways. He means that she was a soulmate. He's correcting me. She is a soulmate. And that was what was to happen to them. Unfortunately, he said that he's very specific, and he's always been specific when it came, and he's saying with my music, with my writing, with how I played guitar, drums, everything. And he's saying I played many musical instruments, Antoinette. He's very particular. Piano, he's like, especially the piano, it has to be done a certain way. And also, when you're channeling, make sure you get the right words. So he's saying that they could have stayed together, but he chose to go a destructive path. That they had multiple pathways that they could have gone, and he decided to go the destructive pathway. And that was through drugs, alcohol, but also into his next marriage. Now, he's very particular about this because he knows there's a lot of controversy with his marriage. And he's saying, I loved Vicky very much. She was also a soulmate. The things that happened and occurred between us. He is saying, I'm not here to discuss my death. I'm not here to discuss what happened that night. This is not the place for that. What I do want to discuss is pathways and how we can choose. He's like, how we can choose where we want our life to go. We always have choices, even though we come here with certain expectations of what we want. He's saying, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a guitarist, a rock and roll guitarist. And that's what I did. My soul wanted to be big. Even though my human self didn't always want that, but it kind of did. Towards the end, I wasn't playing large concerts, but I loved those large concerts, especially with Audio Slave. Audio Slave got bigger and bigger and bigger. He's like, I know everybody loves Soundgarden. We played some great, fantastic concerts, but there was just something about Audio Slave. When we played, the energy was different. It pulsated differently. And honestly, I couldn't handle it. My anxiety couldn't handle Audio Slave. And also what was happening behind the scenes in my own personal life. I had just gotten married. I had children. And he's very quick to say, also not discussing children. There are people watching and curious. This is not the place for that question. And the people that are curious know what that question is. It's off limits. While I say that he wants me to point out at this moment, because we're talking about children, although he says this also goes with Susan for some reason. So I bought this dandelion. You probably can't see it. Oh, there we go. Maybe you can. So it's a dandelion necklace. And okay, he's mentioning there's a song about dandelions. I don't think I've heard the song. And he's telling me he's all over the place. So I'm just going with whatever he says. And and we're just going to go with it. He's saying that he used dandelion multiple times, sometimes in reference to his children, but also in reference to Susan the dandelion, Susan the moon. And there is something with their two birthdays in the moon that he is referring to. And okay, so he's going back to the soulmates, which is why he's here. He wants to talk about soulmates. Okay, because the twin flame, because we were supposed to have a twin flame. We were supposed to have a twin flame reading tonight. So he wants to talk a little bit about soulmates and how you can be on a path with someone like he was with Susan, who he, again, is saying, I loved very much. He said, contrary to, I'm just going to swear, I hope it's okay, it's his word, bullshit. He's like, contrary to all the bullshit I said as we were nearing the end, I did love her. She was my soul. She was, when I spoke about my veins, she was the veins of me. She is what created me. Show me how to live. And he's saying she was my creator. But I fell short of what she wanted and needed. But she also fell short of what I wanted and needed. We were young and we grew up together and we grew apart, and I was a child in many ways and very immature and didn't handle it properly. For that, I give her. And so okay, so he's showing me that's the end. And then he moves on to Vicky. And he says that okay, he shows me Vicky and the children. He's being very cautious about this, very cautious about talking about her because of all the controversy, and that he wants people to know that no matter what transpired between the two of them, he chose that pathway to learn lessons. That was ultimately what he wanted to do. And for whatever reason, she soothed his anxiety when he was on stage. There was something about her that felt like home to him. And yet he's saying it also wrecked him. That he thought he was becoming who he was or who he should be, but in the end, it wasn't. He realized when he went back to Soundgarden that all the running he did was for naught. He actually was that little boy that got on stage when he's saying 19. When I was 19 and I got on stage with Susan, I guess he knew Susan at 19. And he's saying was Susan, I still was that person when I got back with Soundgarden. I realized it, and as I was playing, who I was started to come back to me again. I had forgotten and forgotten and forgotten, and because of that, caused a lot of restraint in my marriage, and it became very unhealthy. But again, he's saying, I chose it, and I chose to stay in an unhealthy circumstance. It's almost as though this was my karmic need for what I had done in my first marriage, and now I was paying for it in my second marriage. And he's saying, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that because people love me and they put me on a pedestal and they look at me as being perfect, and that these women chastise me. I'm not saying they were healthy for me or that they were good for me or that I chose well, but they didn't choose well either. I could never be the man that they wanted me to be because I couldn't be the man that I wanted to be. I was so busy performing and trying to be everything to everyone, including my family, my children, that I forgot. No, not forgot. I lost myself every day. I lost myself and I changed and I changed myself and I changed myself and I changed myself so many times that after a while, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who I was. But towards the end, I realized I hadn't hadn't known who I was until towards the end. And I started to recognize, wait a second. And I started to wake up, really started to wake up in those last 2 years of who I actually was, what I represented, what I wanted to sing. I mean, I always sang everything that I wanted to. I always crossed those boundaries, and the lyrics that you heard are what I wanted to say. But the person that was singing them, there was always this facade that I put out because I was so afraid of my own skin, my own self. And he mentions drugs when he was younger, something about drugs. He did too many drugs and it affected him. It clouded his mind, or it altered him. Something about doing drugs altered him in his younger life that caused all of this as he went through the years. Okay, he wants to take a back seat now. So what happens when spirit comes down and he's explaining it to me and he wants to explain it, wants me to explain it, which is when spirit comes down, they start to feel what they felt then, even though he's fully healed and he's doing magnificent work on the other side. They feel those feelings, and I can feel the sorrow and the loss of not knowing who he was. And he's saying it, he's just taking a moment because we are talking about heavy things. For him, it's very heavy. So we're moving to Chester, who's very happy to be here. And it's funny, I found this picture. I don't know if you can see it. I found it in my things. I am in the middle of moving, and I don't know how to make it. Is it this way? I don't know. Good enough. Good enough. I'm in the middle of moving. So I just have a few things with me, and that just popped out of one of my books, and I'm like, "Hi, Chester. How are you? I guess you're here with us." So he is here, and he's much. So he's comparing himself to Chris, which Chris was very dark and rooted and had this fantastic, sarcastic, dark sense of humor, almost like the English dry humor, where Chester's saying, I was a little more bubbly. I was a little more loud, although he could be loud when he sang. He's like, I was just loud. I jumped around, and I was like, he's like, I was like the little kid compared to Chris. And he's very excited to be here. He's saying he's so happy that people still listen to his music. And he said, he showed me he has this little kid energy. And he's just so excited to have this platform to share he's calling them gifts. His music was a gift to him. He feels it was heaven sent. He's mentioning UFOs. The first time he came to me, he mentioned UFOs, and he's mentioning them again. He's just fascinated with UFOs. He's like, I just love them. I love all that stuff. I love the alien stuff. And I think it's him. When I first started, he was mentioning he had me get out this cup to put my water in, by the way. And so here it is. It's a flower, and of course you're not going to see it. There you go. Sort of. There you go. One of these days I'm going to figure this out, how these cameras work. So I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of flower that is. I think it's a lilac, maybe. But he mentioned to me purple flowers. I know that's pink, sort of lavender, but he mentioned purple flowers, and he also mentioned forget-me-nots. And I think Chris mentioned white roses. So those three flowers, they mentioned to me. So they go with one of the two. I do believe purple flowers, forget-me-nots, go with Chester, and white roses go with Chris. And I believe Chris would give his wife white roses and pink. He's also mentioning pink. But I do believe there may have been roses at his passing, at his ceremony. But forget-me-nots for Chester, and there may be a tattoo for forget-me-nots. Something with fans, forget-me-nots. He's very much into that. So also too, let me see here. There's also a planting of a tree. I want to say that is also for Chester, although I know that people have done a lot of things for Chris. No, so Chris is saying, oh, there's a statue for me. And he laughed, ha, 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 there's a statue. He's like, it is what it is. And he's saying, kids, it wouldn't be my forte. It wouldn't be something I would do, but I get it. Kids. That's all he was saying, kids. So his children must have had something to do with the statue. So anytime anything that has to do with Chris's children, all three of them, he just, anything, he loves them, anything goes. And he's very, very keen on mentioning all three. And again, so he's saying this is too short. I'm not going to go there about Lily, but Lily Bug. He's saying Lily Bug is his baby. He loves his Lily Bug. Okay, so Chester. Okay, so Chester makes notion to the family. Let's see, check the time. Not that I should be checking time, but I am. Oh, okay. We have about 5 minutes. So Chester makes notion about his family. So I feel like there's other mediums that are watching right now, and this is why he's bringing this up. Someone has a question out there. Chris was closer to his family than what Chester was to his. He loved his family, but there was something going on in his home life, his personal life. That he wants to make known for whatever reason. Chris is very on it, but Chester's saying, no, I want this out there so people know that it wasn't so quick. Okay, I think his wife moved on fairly quick. He said it wasn't so quick. It may have looked that way, but that wasn't the way it was. We were on the, he's saying we were on the outs anyway. But I loved my wife and she loved me, but we had some problems that were arising. And he's saying, I'm not saying we were getting a divorce. It's nothing like that. But he understands why she moved on so quickly. And his lifestyle, his life was hard on her, he's saying. It was very hard. He's like, I lived a rock and roll life. He's like, Chris did it different. He's like, I tried to do it like Chris. I couldn't quite get it down. He's like, Chris just had a way about him of making things work. He's like, I couldn't make things work the same way. He's saying I was more selfish and what I wanted. Where Chris gave everything, he's like, I didn't do that. He's like, I probably should have done it more so than what I did. And I'm asking about that fateful day. And okay, he was saying, there's no time to go into that. So we're not going to go into that. I will channel these two beautiful souls on my website, which is Antoinette Marie.net, on my YouTube channel. I'm sorry, my brain is everywhere right now, which is Soul Tea with Marie. But anyway, so I just want to make sure I have all my messages. Dandelion, Forget-Me-Nots, 27 clubs. So I know Kurt came through, but I also believe there's something with Chester. So Chester's here, if anyone's wondering, and Chris is here. Chester mentions the 27 club. He was fascinated with the 27 club for whatever reason. And that whole era. But there's something about the 27 club that resonated with Chester. And also why he was drawn to Chris, even though Chris wasn't part of the 27 club. There's something there about Chris, 27, and Chester. I don't know. If anybody is watching this and put a little note, please let me know, because I don't know. I don't know a lot of this stuff. I try not to look it up. What do they went in with? We have about 30 seconds here. Okay, so Chris says just spread the love, and Chester, spread the warmth. It's all about loving the ones around you, both of them. It's about loving the ones around you the most. Nothing else matters. And that's a reference to a song. So if you want to look that up, Chris is mentioning the song, Nothing Else Matters. And to hold on to what is most precious and don't ever let it go.